I'm live. I'm live. At least I think I'm live. Am I live? I must be live. Oh, there I am. I'm live. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. How are you? I before we get underway, I just have to do this thing on the other screen. I have to refresh the other screen so that this comes up, so that I can be and do at the same time. Okay, there we go. There it is. I have to mute me. All right. And there it is. And there we have it, kids. All right. Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Can we all see everything? Can we see me? Oh, there's me on our side. All right. So I'm so excited, and that's the other reason why I'm early today. I don't know what's with my hair today. For some reason, maybe it's just all excited too. So it's Tuesday, and it's the 8th of March, which means that any minute now, it's going to be that thing we do with the clocks. Forward, spring forward, fall back, spring forward. Yes, we put the clocks forward, and that means that the clock on my car will be right again, because. And then after that, it's just mere weeks until birthday month, and that's my favorite time of the year. So it's exciting. I'm excited, and I was up early, like 5 o'clock, because I had ideas, and I had to write them down, because if you don't write them down, then when you do wake up later, you can't remember any of it. So I was up at 5. I wrote everything down. I went back to bed. And then when I woke up again, I kind of felt a little off, which is something that is happening to a lot of people. And that's why I wanted to talk about it before I talk about the GPS thing and my amazing news. So here we go. I have amazing friends in the entertainment industry who are so talented and so funny and hardworking and frustrated by all the setbacks. And we're seeing all kinds of great news that things are opening up. Maybe, hopefully, crossing fingers and toes that there will be things happening. And I'm so excited for that. But I had a little exchange with a friend of mine who does events, writes books, goes to these fan gatherings, and he was saying that he was a little off. He was a little not quite back to his original self yet from COVID, and he wasn't quite sure why. And the odd thing, since I'm not allowed to sing, is I kind of know part of the answer. So I thought I would share that, because it's a GPS hack. It's a positioning strategy, and it's this: when we're tired, when we're nervous, when we're anxious, we don't breathe deeply. We don't get in with all the good air and out with all the bad air. We breathe, really shallow, like from just here, and we tense our shoulders. We brace for impact, and so nothing good gets in to the bloodstream. Nothing good gets in, and the muscles don't relax, and so our bodies are exhausted, and our brains are exhausted. And we don't know why, because we haven't done anything. We've just sat there. And that's exhausting as well. That's depressing. That's frustrating. So my advice to anyone who is feeling kind of that way, this is my global positioning strategy, is you need to find that friend you have who has the power to crack you up, who has the power to make you laugh so hard that you can't get your breath back. You just howl with laughter. you need to get in touch with whoever that is, and you need to trigger each other. Because that kind of laughter is amazing. It feels amazing. It releases all that good hormone stuff, all the positive endorphins. It also causes you to get lots and lots of air in. Yeah, seriously. So that's Dr. Haggard's Home Remedies on this Tuesday morning. And I want you to try it. I want you to try it. Not only because you miss talking to that lunatic friend of yours, but it works. It's really, really good for you to try it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I had a real brainwave, I think, a real idea that is going to work for this whole pivotry thing. And that is this. When I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, looked at the clock and said, oh, it's 5 a.m. Gosh, I remember my days in morning radio. There are basically 4 different reasons we pivot in life. And my definition of pivot is like the mental version of a basketball player. You know, when they go, and the sneaker squeaks, and they turn on the ball of their foot? That's my pivot, except that it's in your head. So you're going a million miles an hour, you squeak to a stop, and you pivot. And you have directions that you can pivot in. You don't have to go 180 or 360. You can use any numbers and go in any direction. And as I've been thinking about pivoting and this whole idea of giving ourselves permission to bring the best part of us to own whatever's coming, I said to myself, okay, so I'm interviewing all these really sweet, fabulous people, and the reasons they've pivoted are very different, and I expected them to be. What I started to see was that they were falling into these 4 categories, right? So picture this. We pivot to live. And by that I mean we may move to some other place. We may decide that we'd rather have an apartment or a house. We decide that we're going to downsize. We decide that we're going to go big. We decide to go rustic. We want something all technology all the time. We choose the life and the style and the tools that suits us, that feeds us, that supports us the best in the moment, now, this year. And that can change as we get older, as we discover that I did this twice in my younger years. Twice, not back to back. When I was downsizing, I got studio apartments twice. Because I said to myself, it's only me. I'm not having people over. So I don't need a bedroom. I just need a room that has a kitchen at one end of it, and I can put a bed, and I can separate it off, and then I need a bathroom. But I really only need a studio, and it'll be so much cheaper. And both times I would be there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and I would suddenly realize that I hated the idea of only having one room where I had to be all these different things at different times. I needed a dining area because I didn't want to eat on the bed, and I needed a sitting area to watch TV because I didn't want to watch TV in bed. I wanted to organize my life into sections, structured sections. And so I didn't know how else to do that but to get those spaces, put a wall between them, get a door, something. And it's funny because I learned the lesson the first time, and then, I don't know, 2 or 3 moves later, I thought, why am I spending all this money when I could so easily just get, and I did it again, and it took less time the second time, and I thought, this doesn't work for me. I'm not able to just sleep on a floor. It's not me. I did it twice for a while when I was young, and I didn't like it. And so I learned that there are certain things that I'm not prepared to do to live. There are not pivots I'm prepared to make again. And I have lived in some very interesting primitive places because I've had to. The one that gets the highest marks for the worst choice was that I lived in a converted garage. It was a two-car garage, and they put up a wall, and so when the guy got ready for work in the morning, I got to hear him start his car. So I didn't need an alarm clock. I did need good ventilation. So pivoting to live is how we choose to own the challenges that we deal with. We run out of money. We go bankrupt. We get lost. There's a war. There's a hurricane. There's stuff. And we have to pivot in order to live on our terms. It has to be on our terms. Otherwise, we end up like that friend of mine who just feels tired, who just feels that he can't get his self back operating at 100%, because he's been holding his breath and hunching his shoulders all through COVID. And he's never gone, he's never done it. And I'm going to see if he takes my advice and if it helps. And if you take my advice and it helps, let me know. And if it doesn't help, call me out and say, stick to singing. Stick to singing. Maybe not. So, pivoting to live, that's the first category. The second category is pivoting to love. We pivot when we find someone or something that feeds us, that fuels our passion, that wakes up a whole other part of us, that makes our eyes sparkle and heals our heart. When we pivot to love, and I don't mean pivot for love, I mean pivot to love. When we lean into that opportunity to love, to be loved, to cherish something, to passionately connect to something or some place or some goal, then we select what we love and put it higher on our list than all the other things. We prioritize for love. We've all done it. Now, whether it's a pet, whether it's something we've always dreamed of achieving, whether it's suddenly recognizing that, oh my gosh, toll painting, stained glass, writing, performing, or it's someone. And we meet them, and in that moment we know we're complete in a different way than we were before. We pivot to love. When I was interviewing this amazing couple the other day, he said, my dad said, if you never chase it, if you never give it a try, the not knowing will make you unhappy for the rest of your life. Check it out. It's okay if it doesn't work. It's okay to say, maybe next time. But we have to give it a try. We have to lean in to love. Okay. The third one is when we pivot to learn. Now, I can give you an example of me pivoting to learn. I'm figuring out how this whole video computer record thing, face the front, lean back, Facebook, YouTube platform thing works ish, and you are my long-suffering loyal guinea pigs, and I'm eternally grateful to you for it. Um, by the way, um, since I'm live and since I can see on the other screen, speaking of learning, say hi to me. I can tell you're there. I can see your names. But you need to say, hey, Abby, and I can say, hey, back. That's how we learn to make this platform our way of having a conversation in real time without, you having to go and change your clothes and get on camera with me. So, pivoting to learn. I have pivoted to learn stuff a lot. I've had to learn to let go of things that I thought were true. I've had to recognize that it wasn't necessarily that people lied to me. It's that they taught me what they thought they knew. And I had to learn to feel gratitude for lessons that were odd and wrong and unhelpful. That, well, hey, Phil Curry from Texas, good morning. How's the weather down there? I'm just going to click a like. There you go. Thank you, Phil. So pivoting to learn is, by my definition, pivoting to discover something new. It's also the reverse. It's pivoting to unlearn and let go and replace the wrong thing with something new. The example I always give clients who are having a hard time coming to grips with writing is a lot harder than they thought, I always say this. Have you ever been doing math for some reason? Good morning, Steve. Have you ever been doing math for some reason and accidentally added 4 and 3 and got 11? I've done it often. Which explains so much about my life, really. And I have all kinds of excuses why I do it. What it is I wasn't paying attention. That's all. I thought I could do two things at once. Vern Fraser, you have to pivot out of here because strawberries are on sale. Oh my goodness. Strawberries on sale. I have a story. Vern, you just gave me a story. Good morning. Oh, it's raining in Texas? Well, that sucks. Okay. Shop on, Vern. Shop on. So we pivot to learn. We pivot to unlearn, to relearn, to reset, which makes me say to myself, well then, in order that we don't lose our grip entirely, we also have to recognize that all of this is a long game, which means that the fourth category is when we pivot to last. When we pivot to acquire the best tools, to sharpen our swords and put on that awesome outfit that makes us look tall and terribly smart, and take on the world. I posted yesterday, I think, the fact that Vikings sailed everywhere. It was a mug I found, Viking World Tour, and it was all the different years and all the different places that they went, and one of them was Italy. And there was America, obviously, but when I looked at Italy and then Greece, and I thought, most of these places that they sailed to, they could hug the coast. It's not a horrific distance to sail from Norway to the Faroe Islands, from the Faroe Islands to Iceland. It's a bit of a stretch from Iceland to Greenland, but not impossible. It's also not terrible from Greenland to North America because there's all these, islands in the middle. And so it's kind of a leapfrog thing. But Italy, you had to be exploring all these bays, and is this a river and is that a lake, and what happens if I go here? It's a long way. When they sailed across further south from Italy and Greece and the Iberian Peninsula, when they sailed to South America and the Caribbean, it was open water for days. And all I could think of was they did it in open boats. Open boats! Okay. I'd need a lot of training. I mean, I can swim. I can float. But open boats for days. Yeah, that's amazing. So the fourth category, pivot to last, is where I think the stories about people shifting their careers and rethinking their intentions about the work they do and the jobs they have, and what's in it for them to do something they may not love on the off chance that they'll still be alive when their pension comes through, and whether you want to hedge that bet. And people starting businesses and branding on new ideas. When you pivot to last, what you're doing is you're intentionally starting out with a long game in mind. You're not trying to be a flash in the pan and grab all the bucks and run. You're in it to win it permanently. And the crazy thing is that a long time ago I wrote a book about this. And I published it and then I unpublished it because I had a big fight with the publisher at the time, who suddenly changed all the rules. And I said, well, I don't think so. And I yoinked the book. And I said, I'm going to wait, because there's going to come a better time when the content that I've put together in this book is going to mean something, and it's going to mean something in a different way. And open puts a lot of exposure. Yes. That's the thing about fame, all that exposure. The idea of this pivotry in motion concept, pivotry, like poetry, is a way of framing your message. It's a way of saying the thing you need to say and doing the thing you need to do in the way that's best suited to you. It's not about complying. It's not about fitting in. It's about saying, like Ratso Rizzo said, I'm walking here, and owning it. That's pivotry to me. So cool. Pivot to live. Pivot to love. Pivot to learn. Pivot to last. 4 totally different yet compatible categories of pivoting and pivotry, and why people chose to take that risk. So you know what that means? 4 books. It's going to be the Pivotry collection. And my people who've trusted me with their stories, they're going to fall into their categories. And that business book that I wrote 12 years ago, 12 years ago, oh my God. I'm going to be able to pull examples that illustrate all of that. And then, because 4 is an interesting number, but 5 is very cool, I'm going to do a workbook. I'm going to do a workbook that's designed for you. and I'll do it probably in print because 5 looks nice on a desk, on a shelf. But I'm also going to do it as a Kindle, as a digital book, so that you can use it and change it and work on it. And one of the things I want us to be able to do is hold each other accountable and keep each other honest and share how that's working for us. So that whole conversation is going to be the Pivotry group, and I'm looking for the right platform to host it. I can probably have a group here on Facebook. I can also have a group, or at least, what do they call them? They call them playlists. I can have a playlist on YouTube. I can also do it on Patreon, which looks very interesting to me. I don't know enough yet, but Patreon seems to have fewer interruptions. So I'm investigating all the ways to do this. And I love the idea that we can check in with each other and talk about how's that pivot working out for you, and get ideas and insights and advice from each other. And then, see, it was a busy weekend and I told you I was excited. My global positioning, planning, pivoting strategy is this. I have 40, that's 40. I have 40 projects that I own, copyrighted. Some of them are ideas for sitcoms, some of them are dramas, a couple of them are movies. Every pivot that we do in life comes at a moment when everything shifts. Something has shifted around us in our world, and something has caused us to take a step back and say, wait a minute, I need to think about that. Because we're allowed to do that. What we said because it was true, we're allowed to adapt to what is true now. I'm not saying what was true is untrue. I'm saying that what was true evolves and becomes something else, bigger, smaller. 1 room, 3 stories, swimming pool. Our truths evolve. That means that our need, desire, dream of pivoting is a crisis moment. Not always a bad crisis, just a kind of a, oh, and sometimes it's a, oh, right? But it comes at a moment, and we shift, we alter our path, we pivot to do what feels right for us right now. You know why I just said that? Because in all writing, in all stories, character drives plot. People don't just walk out on stage and stand there for half an hour and then walk off stage. Character is not only what we are, it's who we are and how we present. How we change when the world changes with us is a pivot. With your permission, I can introduce your pivot moments that you gave me permission to put in the books. With your permission, I can put them in TV shows and films and video games as well. I can change the names if you like to protect the guilty, or not. It's going to be up to you. all of this presented itself, all of a piece, when I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning. So I was pretty busy writing it down. When we become pivot masters, when we decide that pivotry are us, we don't have to get it right all the time. We get to mess it up because then we get to fix it. That's the whole pivoting, lean in thing that's going on. We get to be resilient. We get to say, well, you know, let me tell you about my last pivot. And we can laugh. And if it's crazy enough, we can laugh that good, deep laugh that I started this video talking about. It gets all the good air in and the bad air out and allows us to relax and feel more like our old selves again. Is that awesome? I am so, can you tell I'm excited? I mean, I'm excited about a lot of things, but this invented itself all by itself, and it tapped me on the forehead while I was asleep and said, hey, get up, you got to write something down. And oh my gosh, here it is. So before I go, I want to tell you, I was going to tell you a GPS story, but it's not nearly as funny. It's not nearly as funny as the strawberry story. Oh, Vern. Thank you. So here's the thing. My father's father was crazy. I don't mean that he had to, you know, go for therapy. I meant that he was a whack-doodle. He just did the most astonishing things, and looked very pleased with himself when he told you about them too. He once he and my dad were driving somewhere, and my grandfather was a terrible driver. He shouldn't have been allowed to have a driver's license. Obviously, in his Viking genetics, he should have stuck to boats. Anyway, he was driving down the street and he got distracted by something, and where he looked, he turned the wheel. And all of a sudden, instead of driving down the street, he was driving at full speed through a hedge on somebody's property. Full hedge, and across the lawn, and out through the other side of the hedge, and onto the street again. And he sat there, my dad beside him, and they had, you know, pine things and branches and sticky bits all over them. And he turned to my dad and said, how much so you don't tell your mother? It's my grandfather. Oh, my grandfather once told me when I was in my teens that he had superpowers. And I really, Granddad? Yeah, came as a big surprise to me. And and why would that be? It happened during the war. I went back to England, you know, to fight. And I discovered that I had the power. It changed everything. And I said, and how do you mean? And he said, well, I wasn't the one who knew I had the power. I would ask. I'd put my hand on a young lady's leg and say, do you feel the power? And she'd say, why, yes, Bill, I think I do. So embarrassing. We see where so much of this is just, I can't escape, right? So when we were stationed in Europe, my grandfather was living in Victoria because I think he'd worn out his welcome everywhere else across Canada. He'd kind of run out of room. And so we're overseas, and my grandfather sent me a box of fresh strawberries from the market in Victoria. It was in, I don't know, who's in Victoria Who can you tell me when the strawberries are in your supermarkets normally? What is it, January or something? It's like early, right? And then you rub it in all over the rest of the country. Anyway, it was January or something. And my grandfather sent me this large box of strawberries. But he didn't pack them in anything properly. He just went to the post office. They were in this little box. So I'll need a box. And they gave him a box. He said, it's going to my son and my granddaughter. They're in Germany. They didn't ask him what was in it for some reason. Maybe they didn't do that back then. Anyway, by the time the box reached us, they took everything out of the big bag, like the mail bag for the military. Open the big mail bag. There's this squashed, flat box bleeding all over everything. Everything smells bad. Everything's sticky. So they called the military police in to investigate, and then they called my dad because I don't know what had gone on before or recently, but I think they thought somebody had sent him a body part. So it's all over the base that my dad was connected to a serial killer. It was my granddad who had the power. I've never told that story to anyone. I'm wondering if it's just damaged my credibility with you forever. In any case, too late to worry about that now, isn't it? So here we are, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, humans of all shapes and sizes. We got stuff going on. And it's not easy. It isn't. It's not easy to be positive. It's not. It's not easy to find a genuine reason to smile. I had a pretty funny exchange on Facebook yesterday about pilots. And Steve Endicott made some kind of joke, and I have one that I still am holding in reserve, Steve. I'll print it later, and then the rest of you will have to go looking for it to see it. Things are never 100% anything. They're not 100% bad. They're not 100% good. Much like my cooking, they're not 100% wrong or right. They're not 100% happy or sad. They are a recipe with ingredients of all of those things in them. Life is kind of like one of those million-piece puzzles. And as we live it and put the pieces together, we pause when we reach the sad ones, the broken ones. We pause when something we're looking at triggers a moment we haven't dealt with yet, not completely. We need to give ourselves permission in those moments to breathe. Even if we're not ready to laugh, we need to give ourselves permission to breathe properly. Take a few minutes. Breathe. Because it gets better. It's like waves on the ocean. It's never completely calm. We have the power to do this if we understand that the safety we have always felt in the structure we had, in the routines we had, in the circumstances we had, we can have again. We can build a new structure. We can find new routines that suit us better. We don't need to yell, "You're not the boss of me," when we're frightened. and really do need someone strong to tell us we're going to be okay. We can rebuild those. We can form them differently. We can create this fabulous pivot-free family. And it's free. And the other beautiful thing is, while I'm just delighted that you've taken time out of your day to be with me when I do this live, it's on the internet. It's never going away. Much like, Mom, and you can't do that on television. So you can revisit any of the videos that you liked or missed. You can revisit them anytime you want, as many times as you like. It's there for you. So we can feel like a family. I'm not really qualified to be a mom, but I am qualified to be a voice. I am qualified to be someone who's had a lot more train wreck adventures than seems reasonable sometimes. And because there have been so many, and I've survived, I've learned how to pivot and say, well, let's not do that again, and retain the lesson, knowing that there was going to be a story eventually, someday. Vern, I'm happy you recalled your strawberry. Yeah. Grandfather's power. Vern, my grandfather once told me that back in the day, when he and Henry Ford were young lads, Henry had some blamefool idea about a horseless ride and didn't have the $5 for the patent. My grandfather said he loaned Henry the $5 and never got it back. I've never checked it out. Wouldn't it be hysterical if it was true? My God. So, I have more stuff that I've held back that I'm going to share with you on Thursday. So I hope you'll be able to join me. Vern, I hope you find a family for your puppy. I hope, Charles, that your visit to the doctor went well. And I hope all of you have a great day. And I look forward to seeing you on the pages of Facebook. And I can't wait to update you a little more on the world of pivotry in all its wonders on Thursday, which is just 2 days from now. So in the meantime, you know the drill. Be good to you. Take the time. Take the deep breaths. Give yourself permission to smile. Like this, share it. Let people know about the YouTube channel. I'm almost at 70 subscribers. And hug your loved ones. They deserve it.